coming in. Today we will be talking with Andrew Turvey, who is from Statistics Canada. And this event is a fireside chat from Data for Good Toronto, and it's from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. We hope we can have the conversation with Andrew, whom I will introduce in a short while. So he's from Statistics Canada. We will be speaking to him between 6:15 and 6:45, hopefully longer. And there will be plenty of time for audience question. We don't have a hard stop at 7, but just being respectful of everyone's time, let's try to end it at 7. Okay, so who's Andrew? You will meet him soon, like I said, but he is the regional manager at Statistics Canada. He's going to talk to us today about various data collection methods and tools that our government uses, and also how we, as Canadian citizens and residents, how we should utilize these resources in order to be better informed and also better decision makers. So I'm going to stop presenting right now, and I'm going to pass it over to Andrew so that you can all actually enjoy what you came here for. So hi, Andrew. Can you hear me?
Hi, Deepika.
Awesome. So first off, thanks for taking the time. This is so cool. At Data for Good, we use open data so much. We've been trying to expand our capabilities, our understanding of the portal. And this session is going to be like a gold mine for us. So yeah, let's start off with a softball. Tell us about yourself. What do you do? What are your responsibilities, and what do you do at Statistics Canada?
Okay, well, firstly, thank you so much for having me, Deepika. It was very nice of you to invite me. Your group does some wonderful things, and we're very excited to share some of our data resources with you. At Statistics Canada, I'm a regional manager, and I'm involved in engagement activities. So primarily that involves outreach, so getting out the word about our data products and services like I'm doing here today. It involves a consultation with a lot of key partners regarding data resources, and it also involves statistical capacity building. So we know that a lot of people are out there using our data, but we also want to encourage them to make sure that they're using it right and applying the correct metadata, so the background information behind the data. So one of the interesting things that I like doing anyway is attending some business expos. And what I do is I set up a booth and I tell people what we have to offer. And it's very interesting because I typically encounter two types of people. I encounter people who come up to me and say, "Oh, we're so glad you're here. I use your data every day. I have you linked in my homepage." And then I have the other kind who say, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I actually am more encouraged by those people because it's a chance to, extend some further information, let them know what we do have, because a lot of people are not aware outside maybe the census data, and even within the census data, how many holdings we have. So I work in the Toronto office, part of the statistical consultation group. And if you are ever on our website and you have a question, what you first do is you get filtered to our Montreal team, and they'll immediately assess your request. And if they can provide quick information to you, it's done right away over the phone or via email from that team. We also have a chat feature on the website that you can access, and they'll respond to you. If things are a little more complicated or you require custom data sets, then it goes to a regional office. And our regional offices are broken up into teams, which include consulting analysts, which help provide, background information or take specs and go to get information from analysts if required. And we also have data consultants that produce custom tables. And we also have a geographer as well, who, if custom mapping is required before we run the data files, or if you want to, say, produce a heat map or something of that nature, they do that as well. So that's kind of the area that I find myself in.
That's pretty cool. So you've briefly mentioned about chat? Like first it gets filtered by the chat, and then it proceeds. The question proceeds. Is the chat a real person or like a chat bot?
Oh, interesting that you say that, because I've been trying to encourage the agency to engage in a chatbot as well. I think that's an interesting opportunity, an AI chatbot, for some of the simple questions like when is the next release for this data source, something along those lines. But it depends on how the questions come in. So we have various options. The chat is actually a live person, and we can respond to emails or phone messages. So however you choose to reach out to us. And I'll show you the contact information on our webpage a little later.
Cool. Good to know it's authentic. So this is a question you can choose to answer or not, because our Datathon, so Data for Good is known for our Datathon events, similar to a hackathon where we help other nonprofits with data analysis skills. So in the past, we've used a lot of census data. Is it possible for you to share anything about the 2021 census?
People are so excited about that. We usually get requests a year or so in advance of the data actually being released, so this isn't a surprise. Unfortunately, with regard to the questions for the new census, the content is still being approved by the government, so it hasn't been gazetted yet. Once we do have that information, it'll be on the website and you can see. But however, all along the way to the release of the census and the actual collection, we engage our stakeholders, and you can participate in consultation. And there is a consultation report for this 2021 census, which you can access. And it details a bit of the variables that we tested. And I'll show you where that is located. But until we hit that point, I can't really comment on the new questions that are coming out. But I'm sure your users are aware that we have all kinds of information currently available from the 2016 census, which is still readily in use. In fact, we recently, with a project with NRCan and Public Health Agency of Canada, released new information tables from the census so that people can use it to analyze the COVID-19 situation and for inputting into their models. And even on our profile data page, we used to have, it's broken down by topic types. So we actually have now a COVID-19 with additional variables there. So that's good for your users to know.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent segue into my next question. I think a majority of our country is still in some level or some phase of lockdown. So has this in any way affected your data collection or your, general work capability at Statistics Canada?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We're actually very lucky because we were engaging in a modernization program. So everyone in our workplace has access to a computer, and we had started working home on, sometimes 1 day a week or 2 days a week. So we were slightly familiar with that process and set up. And our management in our office is very, they think about things in advance. They realized the way things were going too. And every night when we were going home, we were asked to take our laptops with us in case something like this did happen. So we were ready when it did. It did impact us initially regarding bandwidth, having that many people at home. So we went down to just our priority surveys, so our critical surveys. And there's information on our website about which those are. We're gradually increasing the bandwidth, and we have everyone on now, and we're opening up and doing more surveys now. But it did impact us that way. We were able, I don't know if you're familiar with the labor force survey, but as an example, it's a household survey. We interview about 56,000 people every month. And then the data, after the collection period is over, is released in 10 days. So it's a very quick turnaround, and it's important information. So your employed labor force, your participation rate, your unemployed rate. So key information. And we were able to, usually a portion of that is done in-person interviews, a portion of it is done in the call center, and a portion was done at home. We were able to turn that around without any problems, all from home. So that was a pretty big success story. And we actually have the next release coming up on July 10th with the June data. And we're actually another just a interesting tidbit for your users. With the next release coming up, sorry, not the next one, but the next collection period in July, we're going to be, for the first time from the labor force survey, collecting data on ethnocultural groups, just because we're seeing that the impact hasn't been equal through all populations. So we're trying to add a little more context there, so a little more information.
Speaking of surveys, I've actually been noticing a lot of advertisements on social media. I use a lot of Twitter, so I've been seeing a lot of tweets from Statistics Canada profile asking me to complete COVID-19 surveys. I did a couple of them, and then I got I got like emails to do more. So what's happening? What is it being used for? How is it useful for us?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for completing that, and I'd like to thank everyone who takes the time to. The information is very useful, and it's great that people are taking the time. It's probably what you're referring to is our impacts of COVID on Canadians' data collection. It's a crowdsource. They take approximately 10 minutes, and so far we've done about 6. We've done one on specifically the impacts on the post-secondary population. The last one we did was one on parenting during the pandemic. And we have one currently in the field, and it's for those living with long-term conditions or disabilities. So what we're doing is we're taking this information and then we're quickly putting it on our website. We're publishing the data. We're actually even releasing for all of these public use microdata files that your data users can have free access to. All they have to do is go to the website and let us know that they're looking for it, and we can send it through an electronic file transfer. So I'm glad that you're seeing those and doing those. We also completed a Canadian survey on business conditions, and we did this in partnership with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and we wanted to see how businesses were being impacted. We've actually done a second iteration. The first one was done in April. The second one, we're doing it a little differently. We're actually doing a stratified sample of businesses from the business register in that one. So we can look at geography, industry sector, and size. And that one's just about to be completed. It's going to be finished July 2nd. Or sorry, July 3rd. Tomorrow is the last day of collection now.
So summer seems to be a good busy time for data collection. Is that true?
You know what? You're right. There's no rest. We have so many demands from other federal departments. So they're trying to implement their programs, see how people are impacted, and make attempts to deal with that. So we're trying to get as much information out there as possible, and we're trying to react very quickly. We also have another survey that's a panel survey, and that's we use the labor force as a base. It's a voluntary one too. So we've asked a number of people to complete approximately 6 surveys. They're going to be asked one of these panels every couple of months. And some of the questions are going to be similar, so we can assess impacts over time through the events as well.
Kind of like a longitudinal. Is that what you call a longitudinal study?
You would call that a longitudinal study, yes. Yeah.
How long do you plan to keep it up? I mean, what's the approximate time?
For this one, we're looking at just 6 surveys, so it's approximately probably that would be about a year. So
okay, that's still pretty. I mean, obviously, the person who answered the first survey might not stay with you till the 6th one.
We ask. Good question. We ask that they do. It doesn't always occur. You're right. But we do ask that they do. It's kind of like the same with the labor force survey. I don't know if you're familiar with how that works, but we have 6 panels in the complete survey, and they rotate in and out. So as one panel, the new one's being introduced, the last one leaves. So everyone stays for that 6-month period.
That's pretty cool. So again, coming back to the topic of COVID, any other dashboards that you can think of that you can share with us?
Okay, we have done actually quite a bit related to COVID. The first thing we did was we set up, because we were releasing a lot of data, we wanted it to be easily assimilated in one spot. And we've been, I don't know if you've been on our website recently, I'll show you, but we've been organizing things in data hubs. So we're collating all the data related to a specific topic. So for instance, we have a cannabis hub and you have information, related to health, you have information on prices, you have information, like normally these would be separated in different sites, but we keep them all in one place so you can find the information. And a bunch of the items that we have in there are with PHAC, we've been collecting the data that they receive from the Public Health Agency of Canada. Please stop me if I use acronyms. We have so many, and I have a tendency to do that without even thinking of it. But so yes, Public Health Agency of Canada gathers all the health data, so the COVID cases from the different health regions, and we're collating that on the website, so you can get all that information from our website. The last update was actually today, and now we're looking at about 95,279 cases. And that's as current as June 28th. That was released today. And we also have a couple aggregate tables if you're not looking for all the detailed information there as well. We also recently rushed a product that is a pretty interesting product, and your team will like it. It's called the Canadian Statistical Geospatial Explorer. And what it allows you to do is select different data points from a depository or repository, and the data involves like health characteristics, stuff from the census. There's information on proximity measures, and you can actually map the information, and it's lower level than a lot of our data. So all the census data that's in there, you can get all the way down to the dissemination area. And a dissemination area is roughly, it's a unit that we use to put out the information, and it's approximately 400 to 700 people. So you can get that detailed, you can map it out, and then you can actually extract the data even in GIS files. So for those of you involved in mapping, you can get shape files. And an interesting thing is the reason we rushed it out is for help with the COVID program. So all the variables that are related to COVID, we put an asterisk beside them just to help point that out. So for instance, the health data that's available at the health region level, we have indicators such as asthma. We have indicators like body mass index, things that would impact different, the COVID would impact those populations more. So I hope that will be of use to everyone, and I hope you take the time to look at that. And just one last thing that I'd like to mention is we also have an analytical series that we produced. It's called StatCan COVID-19 Data to Insights for Better Canada. And so far we've released, I think it's 39 with the release today, 39 different articles, and this is information on data sets that were pre-COVID but will have an impact post. And the one that we released today is very interesting, and you should all take a look at it. It's on trade and medical protective goods as of May 2020, so it's quite current. It looks at all the information that you're hearing about all the time on the news. And you know what? I did miss one other thing that I would like to point out. I know I said one thing, but I like to talk. We did have a dashboard, and it's on COVID or national economic indicators, but with a COVID bent to it. So it's things like your real gross domestic product. It has your CPI, consumer price index. It has trade data and labor data, and it's all in one table so that you can monitor the month over month changes. So that's a nice product that we have released as well.
So if I just go on the StatCan website and I just search for COVID in the search bar, am I going to get a result of all these dashboards, or how does it work?
You know what? That's a great question, and that's why I'm good. I've asked Deepika and stuff that I can take over the screen and just give you guys a quick tour of where the data is housed. but it is really easy to find, and you can even see it right from our main page.
Yeah. Do you want to take over the screen now, or do you want to wait till the end?
Sure. You know what? If we wait till the end, if there's any other questions, I can show you all points
Yeah.
if you'd like, or...
No, yeah, no, that's a great idea. I'm done with that. Let's do it till the end, once we finish talking, or maybe the audience has more question. Actually, I had another question. It might be kind of a curveball, so feel free to say if you cannot answer that at this point. Uh, I'm curious about how you collect this data, all the COVID-related data. How trustable or how reliable do you think it is, these collection methods?
Well, crowdsourcing is obviously a little less reliable because it's not necessarily, it's not going to be weighted to the population, but a lot of those, so that's how we put the questions together. I'm actually on one of the teams that plans the releases, and they look at things like that. So for instance, the one that we did on post-secondary students, we were just looking for a specific group. And the one we did with parenting, it was, people with children of a certain age. So that's a little less structured, but we're hitting that target and we're trying to get as many people to respond to it as possible. But if you're talking about the reliability of the data, we take a look at it, we get rid of outliers if there's things. That's a really good question. In terms of the when we did the crowdsourcing, one of the first times was related to cannabis. And we asked the population, our users, whether or not they used cannabis and how much they were paying for it and whether they were buying it legally or illegally. So we tried to make sure that all the numbers were in line first. And we do have methodologists that look at all kinds of things too. That's outside my realm of expertise, but we do have really expert methodologists. And all these papers, whenever we do something like that, we're very into transparency here. So we want people to have as much information as possible. So you'll be able to easily find that kind of information on our website as well.
Yeah, speaking of other kind of information, I know as a data enthusiast, as a group with a lot of data enthusiasts, we are more concentrated on visualizations and analytics, but what other type of informations can we find on the website?
Well, visualizations, I just touch on that for a little while because we've been putting a huge push on that lately. We found that it catches a lot of attention, especially on social media. If you have like a visualization, people are going to look at it. So when we do releases, we often have an infographic, and then on the website, we then have a lot of visualizations. I can show you where those are as well. But something neat that we're doing now is called a linkable open data environment. I don't know if you've seen that on our website yet, but
No,
it's
not yet.
not yet. Well, you're going to shortly because I'll show you. But it's a exploratory initiative that aims at enhancing the use of microdata, and it's primarily collected from municipal governments, the provinces, the federal departments, and the whole idea here is to, rather than having the users have to, if you're developing a product, have to source this all individually. It's all in one location, housed under one license agreement, one open license agreement. And the first thing we've done was the open database of buildings. So we're at version 2.0 now, and it actually covers 4.4 million buildings across Canada from 65 sources, but you can download it in a geographic information format in one file. We also have one for educational facilities and another for healthcare facilities. And then we've got a bunch more that we're planning to release as well that we're currently working on. And I'll show you where those are linked on our website as well.
That's pretty cool. And when you say educational and health data, does it cover the entire country, or is there pockets that you always concentrate on?
All the information, there's metadata there because some of it was collected through different periods and through different organizations. So we have the background information for where we sourced it all from. So you can get all the details on the sources when you click on them. Very good question. And you're right, because a lot of times when you're using exterior resources, you don't necessarily have the metadata and you don't have that information. We realize that's crucial for the project that you're working on for accuracy, and we put all that information there.
I just thought of another question. Again, feel free to say you cannot share it if you don't want to.
I cannot share.
So what tool do you use? I mean, as data enthusiasts, we are familiar with Python and ArcGIS and stuff like that. But do you have any ideas about what tools that you use to manipulate data?
I'm actually very glad you asked that question because I forgot to mention it. There's actually on the website, they have tools there for you to use. And there is a version of Python there. It's called, I can't remember what the name of it is offhand, but it's, I'll show you where that is on their website as well. So that is readily available for users to collaborate in an open space environment.
Awesome, yeah. So I guess let's do one more open question before opening it out to the audience, I guess. So any example that you can think of an interesting application of the StatCan data?
Well, most interesting. You know what? One of the things that I was really impressed with, and I worked briefly with this gentleman, is we were testing the consumption of marijuana, and they actually did it with an experimental wastewater testing process. So we looked at municipalities. I think there are 6 municipalities to see if we could measure reliably the amount of cannabis that area consumed. And we also did it with opioids. And I guess the opioids worked a little better, but I thought that was really neat. We're also doing stuff like using satellite imagery to measure crop yield, which I think is pretty neat.
This might be a dumb question, but what's the relation between wastewater and cannabis or opioids? How does it relate? How can one be used for the other?
Oh, I guess when it's in your system and then it travels through, and some of the cannabinoids can be picked up and tested, and so they can trace the amounts of consumption. No, that's a good question. There's a very interesting paper on the website if you want to take a look at it.
All right, yeah, I'll try to find that for sure. So yeah, let's try to move on to. I have some more questions, but let's try to catch up with some of the Slido questions because we have quite a few right now. Yeah, this is one of our top most voted questions. So in Slido, one member gets to ask a question and all the others can vote on if they like the question or not. So this is one of the top voted one. It asks, how is Statistics Canada adopting AI or machine learning technologies? Do you know anything about that?
I do know a little about that, and one of them was the project that I just mentioned related to the satellite imagery. We're actually using machine learning there. There's been experimental tests too. We're working with it right now to try and estimate building height, so then you can calculate we're testing out putting cameras on vehicles and taking that imagery, calculating the height of the building, so then we can calculate the volume of the building and eventually do things like figure out energy consumption or things along those lines. So we actually have a team that is involved specifically with AI related projects, and it is a fascinating field for sure.
All right, that definitely sounds interesting. Okay, this is kind of a loaded question. Again, yes. So this is in response. This question is in response to the current happenings in USA and all over the world, the protests mainly, I guess. How do you deal with bias in people responding to survey? Certain people likely to actually complete surveys, some don't. This also kind of relates to the question I asked in the middle of our conversation. Right. So how do you deal with the bias in general?
Well, we have different types of surveys. So some of our surveys are mandatory and you're required, like say the census or the labor force survey, you're required. So we get a good response there. But in Canada, we tend to have a more positive relationship with our statistical agency, and there's trust. And we have worked so hard to build that trust over the years. We have a trust center on our website, so you can see how the data is confidential. And there's actually a really interesting video that you can watch called Joe Anonymous, and it shows how we anonymize data. And we're very transparent. We actually have a transparency spot on our website too. And I can show you where that is housed as well, just so you can see. But a lot of that is we bank on our name and our trust.
Awesome. Yeah, and I hope that answers the question. If not, whoever asked that, please feel to expand on that if you know any particular
If
example.
anyone needs further information too, you can always submit questions through our website, and they'll get back to you with further details and links. And I'll show you where that is in our final minutes.
It's pretty cool. Thanks. So this is coming back to the loaded question I was talking about. Do you have any open data about police in general? I guess investigations and stuff like that, arrests.
We have, when you say open data, we have a lot of aggregated data that police forces provide to us. It's at the city level, and that data to the city level is available on our website. We're actually going to be putting crime data, I think, down the line in the statistical geograph product that I showed you earlier. So you'll be able to access it that way as well. But we don't have below-level data, so we don't have individual police information. I think a lot of police forces do. Like if you go to the City of Toronto website, I'm actually familiar with one of the gentlemen who works there. He used to work with us, and they have neighborhood level data that you can take from their website as well.
That's amazing. Is the crime data something that you are doing in response to the current situation, or is that something that's been in the pipeline for a long time?
There's a few different things we're looking at, and we've got some information coming out shortly on COVID in prisons. So we'll be releasing that information. And there is some other information that I don't know where we are yet related to crime that will be coming out. They're looking at putting more information related to hate crimes, because the way the uniform crime statistics, the way the data comes, it's usually one thing is mentioned. So if there's a possibility, say, of a hate crime, if they can enter in more fields there, then there might be more information there down the road.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's definitely something we should all be more aware of.
Cognizant of, yes, for sure.
Okay, so the next question on Slido is Statistics Canada collecting any data related to the number of mental health issues resulting from COVID limitations. For example, I guess shelter in place and any mental health issues resulting from shelter in place.
I think she's been talking to my partner. Yes, we realize that that's a very serious issue. And we've actually, one of the crowdsource activities that we put out was specifically related to mental health. And that information is available on the website, and there's a public use microdata file as well. We have also asked those questions, and in the panel survey that we subset from the using the labor force as the frame. So there's information in that one as well too that is going to be asked. I think we discussed that there was 3 different surveys that were going to be coming out, so there'll be that information as well.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, whoever asked that question, if you need more clarification, yeah, please post another one as a sub question.
And we can, again, write into us, and we can show you exactly where that information is housed.
Yeah, amazing. So let's move on to the next question. This is about Indigenous data collection. For more granular levels, is that a StatCan product for learning about Indigenous data?
Well, we'll have the census data. It comes to a very low level, so there's that information. And we also have some other surveys on Indigenous populations. And that information, if you don't find the level of detail that you're looking for, you can always touch base with us. Sometimes the information, we don't have unlimited resources. So sometimes the information that we put out is the information that is regularly used by different organizations. So your different federal departments and it's requested from, say, Indigenous communities. But we do have profiles available on the website as well. If you don't find specifically what you're looking at, let us know, because it's great for us to know too if there are ever any data gaps and we find that that's something that comes in frequently. That's one of the things I do in my job as well too, is I listen to people, find out what they're missing, and then I report that back up. I'll do a little research, I'll contact other communities, see if it is a pressing need, and then we'll get that up there. So good question.
Yeah, I might jump on that. I might have some requests, for a good data thons.
You know what? One last thing there. Don't hesitate to, I think sometimes people feel as though, they're bothering us, but we're there to serve the public. This data is collected. It's your tax dollars that are collecting this information, and we want to make sure it's used, especially for organizations like nonprofits and such as yourself that get the information out, and they're there to, promote health and whatnot. That's great. We're looking forward to that, and we will go that extra mile.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So I think this question follows up from the wastewater and cannabis study that you were talking about, because it asks, okay, this is the question. There are some universities in Canada planning to study sewage water to estimate the spread of COVID-19. Is Statistics Canada looking at options like these?
Very good question. And you know what? I'm sure that team has thought of it. I don't know myself offhand, but again, shoot an email to our team and you'll get a response back.
Okay.
Good thought.
All right. Someone just mentioned 120 characters is not enough to ask my question. So try to split it into two questions. That might be easier, or type it in here. Maybe we will try to condense your question.
Okay, this one scares me a little.
Anyway, moving on to the next question on Slido. Are there any departments within StatCan or other government agencies that work directly on making data more applied, like turning it into a policy recommendation?
Okay, we usually produce the data for other departments that make the policy. So Statistics Canada, we try to stay out of that realm. So we're not the ones, because you run into problems there if you have people making policy who are collecting the data, and you can work towards certain agendas and add bias, whether intended or not. So we try to keep an arm's length from those type of activities.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, what kind of banking data that StatCan currently collect, and are you planning to gather more of banking data?
Okay, that question I'm going to sit back on, because there has been, through the Privacy Commission, we were looking at doing something, and I don't want to misstate anything here.
Yeah, so, absolutely. No, we totally understand.
Yeah, that information is available on the website. And if you have any other question, there's probably a spokesperson that has the full story. I know some information, but that could be enough to be dangerous for me.
No problem at all. We totally understand. So the next question on Slido is Statistics Canada planning to provide more platforms and tools for the public with the open data?
Yes, they're actually, there's more information that's coming. I mentioned 3 of the open databases. Yeah. I think there's about 4 or so more that they're producing there. And then in terms of all our microdata files, we have so many different surveys that have microdata files that you can have access to as well, the public use ones.
That actually brings us to a personal question I have. This one's not on Slido. There are some open data, not open, some data on StatCan that is behind a paywall. Is that something? Why is that? What's the reason behind that?
When you say fire paywall, I'm not 100% sure what you're mentioning.
Sorry, it's not I meant to say firewall, and then no, it's a paywall. Like you need to pay sometimes to get the entire data set. And you can.
There used to be we've changed into an open data policy now. So if the data is available on the website, it's free. So the only situation would be if it's a custom product that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a custom simulation model or something along those lines, then there could be, and we're not actually making money on it. It's just the hourly rate it costs to produce it. So like I mentioned previously, we release as much census data as we can, but sometimes people want cross tabulations that are so individual that not many of the population would want that. So we don't have the time or resources to produce everything, but we do it, and it's just a cost recovery. I think it's $75 an hour.
Okay. Yeah. No.
And you get a cost estimate for free before we engage in the work as well.
That totally makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.
So, okay, we have a few more questions on Slido. Is there any open data about car crashes and specific locations where they occurred? It's an interesting one.
Car crashes, you know what? I do not know if we have that information. We have information on deaths, car accidents, deaths in our death database, but I'm not sure offhand about that particular one. But again, I mean, you send that into our team and they'll verify, and quite often too, they might know someone, even if we don't have it, they might know where it can be found.
Okay, awesome. How do you prevent or filter out dirty data or false data?
Yeah, I'm not involved in the methodology part, so I'm not really the person to ask that. But like I said, they do look for outliers, and there's a bunch of processes. And we have all kinds of methodology documents on the website. I'm probably not, like most of your users, I'm not a data scientist. I started off, I taught college. I actually had a degree in criminology initially, so I'm a generalist.
That's interesting. Okay, this is one of the last questions. What is the process behind creating a reactionary survey like COVID-19? How do you narrow down to what you want to track?
Good question, and a tough question. We have a lot of departments that are asking us for all this information, and we have to cull it carefully because we don't want to have our users overburdened, right? So we're keeping the response burden down by limiting the length of time to complete the survey. We want it to be approximately 5 to 10 minutes in length, and then that way it kind of encourages use. So, and we also have a team that gets together. So from all the different subject areas, and they try to see if any of the questions are overlapping and could be used in the other, because we only want to ask them once unless it's something we're trying to compare over time. So we have a team that's meeting. I meet every Thursday at noon today, and we discuss these issues. So good question. If there's something that you think's out there that's not being asked, please let us know. Maybe it's something that we can, if there's a lot of people looking into that, we can ask that as well.
Yeah, thank you. So, okay, this one's a question not on Slido, but on our chat channel here on Hangouts. So it's a pretty long question. I'm just going to read it out. You are free to answer it at your own discretion, Andrew, as always. We want you to feel comfortable answering our questions. In 2016, Alberta First Nations Information Governance Center discussed how Statistics Canada historically researched Indigenous peoples to death to justify and sustain colonist and racist policies. Consequently, Indigenous people are less likely to trust Statistics Canada and participate in the long-form census. So I guess the final question is, in your view, how can Statistics Canada improve their data collection efforts to build trust with Indigenous communities?
Wow, that is a interesting and very good question. We have a team of Indigenous advisors, actually, that work directly with the communities to try and encourage use. We also produce data products for them to use. We help build statistical capacity as well, too, within those communities so that they can use the information. So we're actively engaged with those communities continually from collection period and on. So that would be one way that we try to do that.
Okay, yeah, that's I didn't know that. It's definitely great to know. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for the question. And I guess the final question from the audience side is any business data that is available for open use?
For open use, well, we have the business register information that's on the website, so
Mm-hmm.
you can get that data. When you're saying for open use, anything that's on our website that you have access to, you can use openly. We're now under an open use license agreement, so if you buy something from us, even for custom, you can
Yeah.
then take it and put it in your products. So that's changed. When I started with Statistics Canada, that wasn't always the case. But we've moved, the pendulum has swung, and it's great that it has because it is giving more access to information out there. So feel free to take any of the data from our product and put that in something that you want to create. If you're a business and you want to resell it, please, by all means, do that as well. It's you're allowed to within our agreement.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That was actually my next question. So
Oh,
thanks for anticipating that. We are at 6:50. So, and yes,
you're on
it's, yeah, either it would be something like 6:30 or 35. But anyway, do you want to go ahead and show us the links that you were planning to?
very much. Thank you so much. I'll just
So,
take over here.
sure.
Let me know when you see my screen, please.
Yes, I think we can all see it now.
Okay, great. Well, what you're looking at right now is our home page. So this is when you enter the StatCan website, this is what you first see. And I'm going to show you something first here. Right here, it's sign up for My StatCan. And I don't know if anyone's done that in your group, but if you have interest in specific areas, whenever we release information, if there are key topics that you're interested in, you can sign up to receive emails and notifications of those. And you can do that through My StatCan. You can also set it up if there are specific data tables that you access on a regular basis. You can just have those. You can chat with experts. So sometimes we'll have blogs where there's a new data release and you can ask specific questions to the survey analysts regarding that. So it's a really good idea to sign up for My StatCan if you haven't already. And here's the daily, which I pointed out to you. So this is our kind of like a release bulletin. So every day when there's new information at 8:30, so for instance, building permits data came out today for May 2020. You'll notice that, or sorry, that was on the 29th of June, but that's where the information will be released. Okay, and here's some of our key COVID topics right now. The first one is there's right underneath it, there's the Canadian Statistical Geospatial Explorer that I mentioned. But the first one will link all COVID-related products. So that's the hub. So you'll see that here's all the data tables related to COVID. You can select and then find access them there. You can go into the Geospatial Explorer. Here's the dashboard I mentioned. So the economic dashboard with the COVID. On the right-hand side here, you can get all the COVID infographics there. Scroll down a bit. I mentioned the insight papers that we've been releasing, and here they all are here. And the one that I mentioned today was medical protective goods. Mm-hmm. So if you just click on that, you actually get a table of the monthly value and the percent change. So you can look at month over month for this information. You can drill into the actual table as well, but this is just a report with a little background information too on it. So it's a bit of an analysis. So we also mentioned that there are all the detailed preliminary data on confirmed cases of COVID. This is the link where you can find that here. And then there's all other stuff related to COVID. And we mentioned the crowdsourcing, and here's the current one that is up. living with long-term conditions and disabilities. So if you want to help us out, check here periodically, and you can participate in these free surveys, and it would be great. And just a couple other things right away from here. Here's a link to the Trust Center I mentioned, so you can get information on the Statistics Act, you can get the information on anonymizing data, and here's a link on transparency and accountability, and accountability. And over on this side, these are other government resources that you may be interested related to the coronavirus as well. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to quickly also point out the census additional tables that I mentioned, just show you where those are found.
Sure.
Okay. So if you scroll down, I'm just going to show you one more thing first too. So here's, we talked about the 2021 census. Here's a little bit of a background of the roadmap too. So here's the consultation report I mentioned. There's a census test that we did. Here's some fact sheets on different things that we were looking at based on the customer feedback we received. So that's good. We can go back to the census program. And now I'm just going to scroll down to the data products. And if you scroll down, you'll see the selected 2016 COVID supplement that I mentioned.
Yeah.
So here's tables that you can see related to that. The first one actually has population in nursing homes and our residences for senior citizens, because you know that they are disproportionately impacted. And one last thing under the data products, I told you that within our census profile, and I'm sure you guys have been on this, but maybe you haven't noticed the addition. So we'll just look at, I spelled it wrong, look at that. Okay. So here's the profile, and it looks at, it's an area profile, so it looks at, depending on what geography you select, it gives you all the census variables based on, and up top here, you can adjust. So based on theme, and you'll see at the bottom, we have added the relevant indicators for COVID. So you can take a look and you'll see the total age population that it'll break down by the 65 and over. We have your structural type of dwelling, household size. We have low income, and it's broken down by age group, so prevalence of low income. We have labor force, so whether you're self-employed or whether you're employed, so that's important. And we also look at the occupation classifications, and then we have a breakdown for those employed in health occupations where they're going to be impacted disproportionately as well. So those are just some of the things I wanted to show you. And before I go, before we sign off, if you have any questions, here's our contact information. You'll notice when I mentioned the chat, you can click on this and you can immediately chat with anyone.
Yeah.
And you can also find the contact us. Everything's in multiple sites. So on any page, it's on the bottom left. So you're always nearby. And here's some of the key data hubs. So we have dimensions of property hub. We have a we have a sustainable development goals. I'm sure you guys are very interested in that. It's collected there. And we have our gender diversity and inclusion statistics sites. So those are some key spots. And there's the cannabis hub I mentioned where you can enter your own information. And here's our minister, the Honorable Navdeep Bains, and Anil Arora as our chief statistician. And if you're interested in some of the services that we provide at the Data Service Center, here's a quick overview, including our free webinar series. And here's another thing that we just tripped upon, our Indigenous Liaison Program that I mentioned. So here's all our contacts there if you wanted to reach out directly. So in Ontario, we have Melinda Commanda and Wade Rossborough.
That's amazing. That's a lot of information. For any of our audience who thought that was too much or who are not able to follow, please send us an email, and I've made some notes. I can pass it on to you at any time. We will just condense it into an email if you found that too quick or too slow. Uh, anyway,
Feel free to reach out to us with any questions you may have, and we'll be able to link you to the information as well.
yeah, Jake just mentioned we're also recording this session, so you can always we will send you the link to the recorded file on YouTube. We will upload it. You can always go and check on it at any time. We have one final question on Slido. I think we will wrap up with that. Uh,
Perfect.
yeah. So okay, no, this is not a dumb question. No question is dumb. How do you decide which data is interesting enough to share with the public, or do you just share everything that you can?
We put everything we collect, we try to put out there. But you're right, there are certain things that are more popular than others. And if you're interested, in our main page, we have the most popular selected topics. So you can take a look at those and see what people ask. Census always comes up strong. Labor force comes up strong. But that's a very good question. And when we put out infographics too, we have certain infographics that we get, 100 retweets and hits or even more. We have others that crickets. So
Yeah, just
yeah,
social media.
exactly. Well, thank you
Yeah,
so much for inviting me, Deepika. I really enjoyed this, and I hope anyone feels free and comfortable to reach out to us with any requests they may have.
yeah, awesome. There are a lot of thank you messages, but yeah, this is as I mentioned, it's a gold mine. Thanks a lot for joining us, Andrew.
Very welcome.
All right.